I'm Sharon Hillis, the Interim Dean of the College of Letters, Arts, and Social Sciences. Welcome, and thank you for joining us to celebrate the work of the inaugural recipients of the Provost Awards for Excellence in Service, Scholarship, and Teaching. Ron Fremont pointed out to me something very interesting a few days ago. He said that it was particularly interesting that all three of these very worthy recipients just happened to be women. And 60 years ago, there weren't any women on this campus. There were no women faculty here, or actually undergraduates either. In fact, the first female faculty were not hired until 19 years after the school opened. Something that you might not know is that among the first 3 women faculty, there were 3 hired in 1957, was Virginia Hamilton Adair. She's a poet described as a literary comet. She taught English in the English and Foreign Languages department here at Cal Poly for 23 years, from 1957 until 1980. Though she was originally from the East Coast, Miss Adair, where she received her BA from Mount Holyoke and her MA from Radcliffe, she lived a good portion of her life here until she died in Claremont. During her lifetime, she wrote 1,000 poems. She wrote and published all of her life, but she did not publish her first volume of poems until she was 83 and blind. An extraordinary woman. So now here we are, 54 years later, after the first 3 women joined the faculty, and I think it fitting that we open the celebration of these 3 women who are here before us with a poem by one of the first 3 female faculty, Virginia Adair. It's called Abundance. Some of you may know it. It's from a collection called Living on Fire. It was written 9 years after Adair had lost her sight, but couldn't be more relevant to us if it had been written just for us today. Abundance. From mountain summits that I cannot see, the wind has brought the taste of snow to me, and night returns me with a breath of frost, the rim on white on Baldy, 9 years lost. Blind to abundance when I was not blind, I breathe one rose and I hold it in my mind. Isn't that wonderful? Today we are able to recognize the work of these extraordinary individuals, Barbara Burke, Elise Wirtschafter, and Tina Hartney, because of the generous support of President Ortiz and the values and visions of Provost Martin Den Boer. These awards and this celebration, to me, bespeak their devotion to the teacher-scholar model, their deep and abiding support of faculty in the academic enterprise, and their implied invitation to all of us here to celebrate, no matter the state of the budget or the economy, the amazing abundance that surrounds us every day in academia. Or, put differently, to breathe one rose and hold it in our minds. It's with genuine affection, admiration, and respect that I give you Provost Martin Den Boer.
Thank you, Sharon. I won't be long because I'm standing between you and some really interesting people. But I did want to acknowledge, first of all, thank you all again for coming here. I think this will be really, really fascinating for all of us. And I've, in the process of choosing these awards, I've been very impressed by how wonderful these 3 individuals are as mentors, as teachers, and as scholars. And you really should, spend a few minutes looking at their CVs. It's very, very, very impressive. They're very accomplished. And without wanting to take away from their accomplishments, I think we should also realize that there are many others on this campus who are also very accomplished. And I think we should recognize that we are a university where a lot of serious work is done and where a lot of students are really, where lives are really changed for a lot of students. And I think we should applaud all of our faculty for that. Let's give them a round of applause. And again, thank you all for coming, and I think you'll have several treats in mind.
Our first award is for excellence in service. When I heard that the recipient of this award was Dr. Barbara Burke, professor of chemistry, I thought, of course. We have known each other for a very long time. We used to see each other picking up coffee in the mornings on the way to our respective offices. And whenever I asked her about her weekend, the answer invariably involved taking students to one event or another, picking them up, taking them in her car, driving them to LA, providing them with opportunities and access that they most likely would not have otherwise enjoyed. As one of her colleagues pointed out, she has worked tirelessly via her SEAS program to assure that all students, especially those from socially and economically underrepresented groups in our society, have the proper advising, mentoring, student support, and scholarship, research, and job opportunities. As an advisor, Barbara has no doors to her office and no clocks on her wall, and I might add, no personal time on the weekends. She mentors her students and supports them both emotionally and academically. She conducts numerous workshops and private tutoring sessions to assure student outcomes are maximized. When her colleagues talk about her, one common theme emerges. They speak of passion, persistence, enthusiasm, and commitment. One wrote that quote, the care and time she provides our students, faculty, and programs is not matched by any other person that I've ever seen in over my decade here at Cal Poly Pomona. She has served on numerous committees in the department, college, and university level, and has been a tireless campaigner for and exemplar of chemistry teaching reform across the country. A colleague from the University of Alabama praised Dr. Burke's work on her research apprentice program funded through the U.S. Department of Education, Women's Educational Equity Act. The program was designed to create a replicable national intervention model to increase the number of women graduating from STEM disciplines. Her colleague reported that this project has been highly successful, facilitating the graduation of more than 95% of the women in these disciplines in the program. She has been the recipient of more than $4 million in funding from agencies such as the NSF, the NIH, the Department of Education, the California Endowment, and the California Wellness Foundation. The Provost Award for Excellence in Service requires that the recipient has demonstrated significant volunteer activities, made noteworthy and widely recognized contribution to the professional community, and provide outstanding service to the department, college, and university. Dr. Barbara Burke has certainly done all of this and more. Barbara?
How do I follow that?
Let's turn this off.
Okay. Well, first of all, I am very honored to receive this award. You know, there's nothing like hearing so much about yourself to make you want to kind of go under the table. But the reality really is I'm not accepting this award for me, but it's really for the students and the faculty and everyone else that I've worked for in the community and worked with. They're the ones who have done a major amount of the work, especially the students, you know. So what I want to do today is I'm really going to focus on the SEAS program, because here I think this is where you can really see that these students are, you know, reaching their potential and then going out into the world. And so I call this Achieving Their Dream and Stories of Success. The first what I want to do is tell you a little bit about SEAS. I'm not sure everybody knows. You know, we're a college-based equity and retention program. We've been around since 1987, and our target is really students who are normally underrepresented in STEM disciplines. And STEM disciplines are science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And one of the key points about I think I can use this. Okay, it works. About SEAS is that the students become a learning community. They go to conferences together. They study together in our workshops and in our study room. They also, many of them, go to the same class together. That way they've got friends in a given class, as well as spending time talking about academics, you know, which I think is really a good thing. The other component of C's that is very important is the longstanding and significant support, and Srini's not here, he's our Dean of the College of Science, but all the deans have always supported us in so many ways and made it possible for C's to flourish. But I also want to point out the faculty. The faculty are there with us when our students receive awards, John Classic and Mike Keith, and then we have a lot of our faculty also are mentors, research mentors for our students, and then our faculty come to functions, and up here we have, I'm sure many of these faculty are in the room. They're always supporting us in all of our programs, as well as we have 22 faculty advisors in the college, and so that's a significant support for our students. So the underlying philosophy of C's, I think, is what really makes it work. And, so for that, we call it the 3 C's. And the most important one is content. The students have to be able to know the material. They have to be academically sound. And the second is the community. Sorry, folks. And the second is community. As I said, the students work together, study together, and they go to class together to form a very strong community. And finally, through our programs, especially our academic excellence workshops and other programs, we also force them to make presentations so that they become able to communicate their technical knowledge to others. Okay, so I want to next, I think, give you a little bit more detail about the C students themselves. We have about 325 students who are in our program, and most come from underserved and underrepresented communities, and about 70% are first generation. Okay, and that's significant. 20% are freshmen, 12% more or less are transfer students, 50% are on financial aid, and almost, 3/4 or more work part-time because they just don't have the money otherwise. So what this means, though, is that our C students have a lot of challenges, okay? And one of the challenges is they come from backgrounds where they don't have any idea of what is it like to go to college. Okay, most of their parents did not go to college. Oh, before I get to that, here just to give you a little bit more about the demographics, 12% African American in C's, 78 Hispanic, other is about 9%, and then 2% Native American. So what that says is we really have a group of people who can see students like themselves doing well, and so that's an important point. But now the challenges really come because many of their parents have not gone to college. They don't have that in their families. And so one of the things I endeavor to do is to try to always communicate to the parents, what is college like? Because they don't really understand that. So I try to make a point to go to, I don't know, it's not working, to go to various events where parents will be so that I can talk to them. And in the C's program, we have our annual Christmas party, which we invite the students and their parents, and many faculty come to that from our college. And so the parents get to meet the faculty and get to learn a little bit more about what it's like here at Cal Poly. And that's a really very important issue, is to get the parents so they realize that it's okay for their daughter to come on the weekends and to stay at night and study. That's very difficult for some of the parents to understand. And so now in terms of the students themselves, one of the big issues for these students is a lack of role models. But if you go back to the demographics, we have a lot of upper division students who look a lot like them. And so they do gain a few more role models. And I think most of them are coming from school districts that probably don't have a lot of AP courses. The students don't learn a lot of study skills, and so there's a lot of inequities that they're coming from. And especially access to technology. Most of our students, yes, they'll have computers, but most of them will have to come to Cal Poly to be able to access the internet. And so that's why I think if you noticed in the first group of slides, we have computers. So I always make sure that they have access to our computers. And so that's an important thing. The other is to manage going to school and working. You know, when you're working about 20 hours a week, I yell and scream if they tell me they're working 30 hours. You know, I say, no, go back to 20 hours. And I try to get them jobs on campus if possible. But managing all the different life roles, you have to think of what, it's like for a student who's a first generation. They're the ones who maybe can take their parent to the emergency room and talk to the doctors. So a lot of times they have to miss class because somebody had to go to the hospital and they had to be the one communicating, or they've got to, do a variety of other tasks. So they have a lot of obligations in their family, and that's one of the challenges. Okay, well, what is the role of Cs? In Cs, we try to bridge, that world they're coming from to the world, in my mind, they're going to be the ones developing. They're going to be the ones making the scientific discoveries, finding that new mathematical formula for whatever mathematicians do, and and then it will be transformed, into technology. So we have to bridge that world, though. They're coming from a far different world. The other is engaging them in the university. Many of them, they just want to come here, go to school, go to work, go home because they got to wash the dishes, they got to take out the garbage, And so we have to teach them, no, you have to stay on campus. You need to study here. You need to join clubs. You need to be part of the university. And then C's is synonymous with opportunity, and I think some students will think I'm rather forceful in that respect, but I try to make sure that students take advantage of opportunities like summer programs. I tell them, go away, get out of California for the summer and do a summer research program or other types of programs. Or if I know there's some other opportunity at Cal Poly, I will push and push until they do it. But we have to do that. And so that's what I mean, that it's synonymous with opportunity. And I think as you'll see as I go through the various things we do, that we develop STEM leaders so that our graduates from C's are ready to go out into the world and, take charge and be leaders. Okay, so what do? The first thing when a student comes in, they become part of the first year experience. So we get them on day one when they get here during orientation. I grab them and talk to them about all the different things that C's can do for them. And so we have a mentoring program, we have an orientation course, and we have our academic excellence workshop program. The mentoring program, I think, is not new. It actually was started here a long time ago. But the way it works is that we take our freshmen who come in, and so in a ratio of 3-to-1, we have 3 freshmen who meet weekly with their upper division mentor, and they meet for about a half an hour, and it's just, they might go for a walk, they might sit down under a tree, go to the library. So they meet, each upper division student meets with freshman mentees. Then we have, again, we like the ratio 3-to-1, I'm not quite sure. But I think it's better, you can deal with 3 people. And the same way here for the faculty member. So the faculty member has 3 upper division mentors, and we actually have a book that the faculty use with the students. It's called The Elements of Mentoring, And so generally they go through this, and it takes, I don't know how long it takes them, but throughout the year they do that. But so we have a strong basis for the mentoring program. But the mentoring program is really important for our freshman students because it helps them get into the university. For our upper division students, okay, they need to talk to faculty. They need to find out, okay, here I am, a junior or senior, and what exactly do I want to do with my life? How do I get to where I want to go? Okay, and so it's vital, this is really vital for that faculty role. And I think this makes our mentoring program very successful. And so again, I have an upper division student who coordinates the assignment of mentors and setting up meetings and things like that. They meet weekly, and we have the mentees and the mentors have a weekly journal. I never look at that. It's more for them to write down, what's happening and just kind of think about it. Then we do a quarterly assessment where we ask a series of questions, and usually the coordinator helps me figure out which questions they think we should be asking. But it helps us to keep our program moving and improving. And I'm going to come back to, I guess not. Okay, the next one is the orientation course, and it's 2 or 3 quarters. Generally, I'm pretty forceful on the first 2 quarters. The third quarter, I'm a little bit more flexible on, but I like them to be there in the class. So we do a lot on time management, study skills, careers, but in addition to that, I have them read books, which is another interesting thing when they're asked to read books. But they're books about people like themselves. Ben Carson, who's a physician who came up from very, poor circumstances. Then, the one they always get a big bang out of, the ditch digger's daughter. There was a ditch digger who really wanted all of his daughters to be physicians. Of course, that didn't work. But they all went on to do some really important things. And so there's a lot of issues. The last one we do is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, which this, as you can see, is a thicker book, and this is one that has a lot more science in it, and a lot more about issues, about ethics and science. So that's kind of the progression that we use in those 3 quarters. So, but we also make them, so they have to write reports on the books, they have to make presentations on the books. So that is an important skill, and the best place to learn that is in an area where you're safe. They feel safe in our classroom. So we have them, some of the posters for various things, and one of the things like this week, so don't tell them, I don't think they're listening, but the Nobel Prizes are coming out this week, right? So what we'll do on Friday is I will tell them, we've gotten Nobel Prize in physiology, medicine, physics, and chemistry. And so what they're going to have to do is to find out who the person was, what did they do, what's the importance of what they've done, and then, this is the hard part, they have to go to a faculty member and talk to them. Like, so some of them, we could put them in groups. They have to go to somebody in physics, like Dr. McCauley, or they'll go to Dr. Hartney because of the physiology and medicine, or let's see who's here. Dr. Starkey's a good one. But I want them to go, and then they do a presentation on it. Okay, so it forces them to learn a little bit more about the science. Also, in the orientation course, we have speakers. So they have to do speaker reports at the end. Every week they're turning in a speaker report. We have our upper division students come back and talk about their research. we have people like Dr. Wilson, Dr. Page, a bunch of people come in and talk to the students about how did they get from where they were to where they are. Then we also have Kevin Colliner from Student Affairs. We have teaching partners from Student Affairs. And the other important pieces are our alumni. They come back and they share with the students, what am I doing now? And why do I think it's important? So that's a very important piece, are our speakers. And also, and the part I really love is the K-12 outreach, because that's part of what I do, is to do magic shows. And so I take the students along with me to do it, or I bring the classes, to our chemistry labs, and we do that. So they learn about giving back to the community. And then our field trips, we have on-campus field trips, like going to the Regenerative Center, and you wouldn't believe how many of those freshmen have no idea where it is and how to get there. So that's part of their assignment, is where is it, how do I get there? The other thing we do on campus is our paint and coatings, where they learn a lot about paint, and there's a bunch of interesting stuff, and they get to make paint, which is always fun. Then we go to places like the San Bernardino Crime Lab, because one of our students actually, we've got 3 people there who are actually working there. And so they run the tour, and so it really is important to do that. So our field trips are important. Okay, then the third piece is our academic excellence workshop. And this is where we really, really stress the academics. They have to learn. It's based on the Uri Treisman model, which is group learning, peer-oriented group learning. And we really focus on chemistry, math, and physics, because those are the core courses for people who are science majors. And so they're peer-led, 2 hours, twice a week, sessions. And then we have our upper division, C's, and I let an MEP student in here, C's and MEP students who are facilitators. And we train them. They go through a 2-day training to be a facilitator. Okay, so that is a very important thing. So the other, in terms of data, is we've had over 4,600 students, and the most important thing is about 50% of them have gotten an A or B in the class. Okay, 85% are C or better. And that's really good when you think about that our class averages, and maybe I shouldn't be talking about class averages, but they're about 2.0 in those classes. And so it is significant that a lot of our students get A's and B's, because that really is helpful. So those are the 3 parts of our first-year experience program. And so what do they do next? Because they're here for another 4 years or so. So we have our 2nd through our 6th year, and here we really stress getting out there and learning more about your field, okay? And so the most important way are our research apprenticeships and summer programs. Again, I try to get people to go away from California for summer programs. But during the year, we really try to have students involved in research apprentice programs. And that's a very, very important thing. We also stress that students do presentations, whether it's here on campus or whether it's a regional or a national meeting. But also, if you notice here, I also make sure that our students who are not doing research, that they go to these conferences. And so that's one of the, and that's on the next slide, where one of the most important things we can do for our students is to send them to professional meetings before they do research, because that inspires them to do research. Okay, so we also give them support for the GRE, the MCAT, and all of those other types of exams they have to take. But also, they also keep going to their advisors and mentoring by faculty. That continues to be important. Now the reason I have the diagram over here, is that students When they're freshmen, they participate in all the freshman activities. Then once they become a sophomore, late sophomore, early junior, then they're the ones who can become the AEW facilitators. So they grow into becoming a facilitator and a leader. So we have a lot of, and the same way with mentee, then becomes a mentor. So I put this one back up because Elise was Christine's mentee, and then after a couple years, Elise became the mentor. And the same way she became a facilitator. And I think that is the real strength of C's, is that you develop students, they grow from being just a freshman to somebody who's in charge. And, and that's what we're trying to depict with this drawing. And it was done by a C student, and so that's why it's there, Well, Okay, so what is our success? We have an 80% retention rate for the first year, and that's pretty good. It's comparable to the College of Science. However, unfortunately, it's much larger than that for people who are C's eligible but not in C's, which is 63%. 10% of C students basically are on the Dean's List every quarter, so we feel really good about that. The graduation rate, C students, is a little bit higher than that of the college. Not great, but a little bit higher. Unfortunately, those people who are not in C's have a much lower graduation rate, which is really unfortunate. But you can't force people into a program like ours. I mean, I can harangue people a little bit, but you can only go so far. And then 22% go on to professional or graduate school, and that's greater than the national average, according to NSF. So we feel really good about that. So what else? They achieve their dreams. So we've had about more than 500 alumni since 1992, 50 physicians, dentists, other health professionals, 18 PhDs. You have to kind of remember that PhDs, just aren't as glamorous as being an MD. So, and that's from a student perspective, it's much more glamorous to want to become a medical doctor than, we don't, somehow, but we still get a few of them. And then about 80 are involved, they've either gotten their credential or they've gotten a master's degree, and they're teaching in our community colleges. So we feel very good. And here's just some of them, and I want to point out one in particular who some of you know. He is Steve Alas. He's a professor here in biological sciences, and he was a C student. So very proud of that. And so we have, all kinds of people. I think I'm running out of time. Oh, okay. Well, then we can talk about, she's a veterinarian right now. She's in medical school. He's got his PhD, and he works for Gilead. She's got an MS in nursing, is going for a PhD in nursing because she wants to teach. And then in this group here, we have people in industry. We have some pharmacy, PharmDs, and MDs, and then master's degree. And he's got his master's in public health and is going for a PhD. And Guillermo, I don't know how many people know him, but he's a dentist, and he's pretty well known on the campus because he works a lot with our sports teams in terms of, when they get hurt and stuff like that. Priscilla's in a PhD program. Christian's in a PhD program, and she graduated with a PhD in biology, and she's working, it's important, she's working for a hospital, children's hospital back east. And I think that's characteristic. And I forgot these two. That was the only picture. I don't have a recent picture of both of them together, but they're both doctors, MDs. And the interesting thing I think about C students is they come back to give back to the community. Like she's trying to work on research for eye problems. And both of them are now working in LA. They donate one day of their time at clinics poor people's clinics. So we always have our students come back and give back. That never ends. And so what are the characteristics, I think, that make our program work? And that is we have the 3 C's, content, communication, and community, that we feel that's the underpinning. The peer mentoring is very, very important. Our faculty, I think the faculty involvement is absolutely necessary so that the students can connect with faculty. And then our strong administrative support, as I said, from the dean's office has been just tremendous. Our strong alumni base, because they will come back. All I have to do is call them up and say, do you want to come to my class on Friday? And they will. So it's very important. And external funding. Money always helps. The more money you get, the better it is, the more you can do. And so then I thought I would just kind of spend a little bit time on the significance of the number of students we're putting out into the workforce. And one is that we're actually addressing the shortage, by increasing the number of students graduating. And that diversity, it's well known in the literature that diversity can more effectively address a lot of the problems we're faced with. And even here, you always know that differing perspectives always promote more discussion and more effective problem solving. But even more important are those role models, because our alumni do go and give back to the communities. Okay, so that's really important. So then I just want to acknowledge all the different types of funding I've gotten. And I do want to thank the Kellogg Legacy. Now, because we've had such a successful freshman orientation program, we're trying to inaugurate a transfer program. And that's a lot more difficult, as we found out last week when we had our first meeting with the transfer students, that it is not the same. You have to have a different program. So we're going to be really working on that. But you can see we have a lot of support for scholarships, research, travel, all kinds of different things that are needed. But I don't want to forget, even though they don't give me money, the faculty are really important for advising and mentoring. And our alumni are most important because they will come back and talk to our students or have our students go over there. And again, Srini again, I can't forget the dean's office. We wouldn't be here without the dean's office and their support. And Dora, she keeps everything in line for us. And, so I'm very happy. So thank you. And then the last slide, I think, if we can get to it. I think this is Tajay. She's one of our students who came from LA, from a very not a good background. And her dream was to become a physician, and she did. So she became a physician, and not only that, but she got her first choice for her residency. So she's finished the residency, and now she's back in the Central Valley practicing. Okay, so again, but to me, this kind of epitomizes the growth that somebody can have as part of the SEAS program. And again, it's their show, not mine. So thank you. Thank you.
She's published numerous books and articles that her peers say, quote, have had a profound impact on the field, and that, quote, listen to this, no American scholar of early imperial history has a higher reputation than Elise Wirtschafter. She is widely considered to be the leading American historian of 18th century Russia. Last year, she was invited by the French Academy to deliver a series of lectures at the Sorbonne. She has received a Guggenheim and a grant from the National Council for Soviet and European Research, as well as 3 highly competitive grants from the International Research and Exchanges Board for archival study in Russia. She is regularly asked to major conferences and workshops at prestigious universities in the United States, Europe, and Russia. She has served on the editorial boards of distinguished historical journals and is a sought-after evaluator of manuscripts for a long list of prestigious institutions. She has generously given of her time to mentor graduate students from institutions with PhD programs and to younger colleagues seeking her advice. I think it's best said, though, by a colleague of hers. This is a letter from UCLA historian Gail Lenhoff, and this is what she writes about Dr. Wirtschafter. I'm just going to read a little bit, but listen to this. It's amazing. Her work is widely recognized as important and first-rate scholarship. Last year, she was invited by the French Academy to deliver a series of lectures at the Sorbonne. She's been awarded the highly prestigious Guggenheim Foundation Award, a grant from the National Council for Soviet Research. She is regularly asked to major conferences, and her professionalism and innovative scholarship, listen, cast a favorable light on Cal Poly Pomona, showing its strengths as an institution whose faculty's credentials compare favorably with, or in this case exceed, the credentials of Russian historians at schools such as Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Berkeley, and my own institution, UCLA. Additionally, her presence serves the teaching mission of Cal Poly. Truly good teaching conveys a spirit of inquiry and discovery. We want our students not merely to be entertained by media displays or to memorize a list of facts, but to learn to ask important questions and pursue the answers. In this respect, too, Professor Wirtschafter's intellectual standards, creative gifts, and inquiries into the building of a civil society enhance the learning experience at Cal Poly Pomona and promote a culture of tolerance for diversity, intellectual conversation, and constructive debate of topical themes. And this is the last paragraph from this letter. To sum it up, there is no scholar of my acquaintance, here or abroad, more deserving of award for creative, innovative, foundational scholarship than Professor Elise Wirtschafter. She does honor to her profession, to California University System, and most especially to Cal Poly Pomona, where she serves. I give you Elise Wirtschafter.
Oh, I'm not using it. Thank you. That was very nice. Thanks. Thank you all, and thank you for coming. I'm giving you a very academic presentation, but this is a university, so let's see. Is there a light? I think it's okay. As a historian, I know that change is inevitable, that what people believe or think necessary one day is appropriately dispensed with another day. I also know that traditions, habits, and cultures endure. My current research is devoted to traditions that have endured. I am writing a book about the Russian religious enlightenment in the reign of Catherine the Great. You are no doubt familiar with the Enlightenment writ large, either in the form of canonical Enlightenment thinkers such as Hume, Smith, Voltaire, Rousseau, and Diderot, or in the form of the American Revolution and the founding of our republic. Documents that we live with every day, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, are quintessential products of Enlightenment principles and practices. Probably you also are surprised that the 18th century Russian Empire, a society built upon serfdom and absolutist monarchy, can be associated with Enlightenment ideas. I will spare you the esoteric historiographic debates and say only that scholars today tend to avoid the notion of a single Enlightenment. Instead, they speak of multiple Enlightenments, including a moderate mainstream or a religious Enlightenment, which helps to elucidate the Russian case. Modern historians are inclined to emphasize the Enlightenment's optimism and celebration of reason, but in doing so, they ignore the religious or at least providential sensibilities of many 18th century thinkers. Enlightenment culture did indeed strike an optimistic note, and Enlightenment intellectuals did assume that through the proper cultivation and application of human reason, moral and material progress could be achieved. But Enlightenment thinkers also understood the vulnerability of human life in the face of uncontrollable passion and harsh physical reality. They understood that while moral clarity and rational criticism might be possible, the realization of morality and reason in human affairs required constant struggle. In other words, the Enlightened belief in the possibility of progress, the idea that the human condition could and should be ameliorated, remained tentative and muted, despite the expectation of human flourishing and ongoing improvement. Enlightenment thinkers also recognize that truth and reality sometimes exceed human understanding. Throughout the 18th century, important representatives of Enlightenment thought continued to believe in the existence of a God-given natural order, the workings of which human beings could never fully comprehend. Scholars today living in a post-Holocaust, post-Hiroshima, post-Gulag age may see in the Enlightenment assumption about progress an attitude of arrogance and utopianism. Yet it is clear that 18th century reformism did not come close to the hubris or presumptuousness of social engineering in the 20th and 21st centuries. The Pan-European Religious Enlightenment, which provides the framework for my research, grew out of efforts to find a reasonable faith, neither excessively enthusiast nor rigidly doctrinaire, that would be capable of sustaining belief in an age of ongoing scientific discoveries and new societal priorities. The Religious Enlightenment sought to reconcile the new learning of the 17th and 18th centuries, the natural philosophy and mechanical arts derived from Cartesian, Baconian, and Newtonian science, with established authority and religious belief. Religious enlighteners generally supported the absolutist politico-religious order of 17th and 18th century Europe, also promoted egalitarian Enlightenment ideals that to this day continue to generate social and political change. Through the incorporation of modern knowledge into Christian teachings, religious enlighteners responded to the principles and concerns of philosophical modernity. They produced innovation in the guise of tradition, and in the process connected a world understood with reference to God and the promise of salvation to one in which human beings look to science and their own cognitive powers for immediate solutions to human problems, to earthly problems. In Russia, the teachings of religious enlighteners encouraged the Russian monarchy, church, and educated classes to come to terms with European modernity within the framework of Orthodox Christian belief. And that's Orthodox with a capital O, as in Eastern Orthodox Christianity. The intellectual bridge provided by enlightened churchmen helps to explain how educated Russians so readily assimilated and made their own the European cultural models that poured into Russia during the 18th century. To explore the relationship between innovation and tradition, I have been studying the devotional writings of the Metropolitan of Moscow, Platon Lovshin, who was a prominent prelate in the reigns of Catherine the Great, Paul I, and Alexander I. Platon rose from the parish clergy of Moscow province to become a monk, bishop, and eventually metropolitan. As a student at the Moscow Ecclesiastical Academy, he received a Jesuit-style Latin education. He was born, by the way, in 1737. Platon also was self-taught in Greek and French, and as Archbishop of Moscow and Archimandrite of the Trinity Surgis Lavra, which is still today the most important monastery in Russia, he supported the teaching of German, Hebrew, geography, history, and mathematics in seminaries under his authority. Among contemporaries, Platon achieved renown for his religious moderation, literary eloquence, and enlightened educational policies. In 1763, Empress Catherine the Great brought him to court to serve as teacher of catechism to her son and heir, Tsesarevich Paul. While at court, Platon regularly delivered sermons in the presence of royals and other powerful members of the civil elite. Thanks to a 20-volume collection of Platon's sermons and catechisms published during his lifetime, educated Russians outside the capitals also had access to his teachings. Without dwelling on the Metropolitan's homiletic sermons, I'd like to share one example of how Platon provided traditional Christian answers to the Enlightenment concerns of the 18th century. This may sound surprising, but if we study the history of Christianity, we see that in Christian thought and practice, progress always has meant more than the promise of salvation or the attainment of eternal happiness and the life to come. Ideas about God's providence for the world and the oneness of his creation also require the betterment of life on earth. In the 18th century context of an educated public, increasingly attuned to possibilities for self-improvement and societal reform, there developed a natural bridge between religious teachings and the modern expectation of earthly solutions to human problems, a bridge that is illustrated by the concept of equality. Equality is a key Enlightenment principle that resonates in our own day. Equality is also a principle that church intellectuals such as Metropolitan Platon blended into the teachings of Orthodox Christianity. Legislative, literary, and religious sources from 18th century Russia show that among church intellectuals and Enlightenment thinkers, equality meant moral rather than legal or socioeconomic equality. Thus, while the vast majority of educated Russians accepted social hierarchy, absolutist monarchy, and gender inequality as natural or God-given, they also believed that all human beings possess an equal capacity for moral development. Their understanding of equality as the potential for moral goodness transcended social distinctions, echoing the Christian belief in free will, the idea that every human being possesses the freedom to choose between God and sin, what we would call the freedom to choose between good and evil. In a sermon from 1795 celebrating the feast day of Saint Nikon, Platon delivered a stunning message of what today would be called gender equality. Of course, the Metropolitan did not think in modern democratic or feminist terms, but his teaching illustrates the ongoing transformative power of Enlightenment ideas. For Platon, Saint Nikon personified the feat of virtue and piety that the preacher equated with the spiritual struggle and courage of Christians. According to Platon, the Christian ascetic or zealot is a person, male or female, who seeks not human glory but the glory that comes from God. Saint Nikon may have been a male model of perfect zealotry, but Platon was quick to point out that there is no difference between men and women in the Christian feat of virtue and piety. All ascetics, male or female, are equally brave, equally armed with spiritual powers, and equally crowned with heavenly glory. Nor did Platon's spiritual egalitarianism end with gender. In other sermons, the Metropolitan highlighted the humble origins of the apostles in order to show that social status and worldly success do not guarantee spiritual enlightenment. In the sermon devoted to St. Nikon, he likewise added that the physically deformed or disabled person also can carry within himself a beautiful soul. Physical eyes may not see this beauty, the preacher noted, but it is strikingly visible to God, the angels, and all, quote, enlightened spiritual eyes, end quote. Repeatedly in the sermons of Metropolitan Platon, the path to salvation is equated with the feat of virtue that every believer is called upon and possesses the capacity to seek. Precisely because, as Orthodox Christianity teaches, every person possesses, quote, the freedom to choose between good and evil, which is one aspect of humanity created in the image of God, end quote. Because of this teaching, there is an essential equality in the God-given nature of human beings. This equality is then linked to the promise of salvation understood as, quote, a process of growth whereby the sinner is changed into the image and likeness of God, end quote. The basic idea is that the human being decides whether or not to open his or her heart to the Holy Spirit, which then makes possible the living of a virtuous life. What could be more powerfully egalitarian than the idea that every human being, male or female, well-born or lowly, rich or poor, beautiful or deformed, is, quote, called to be transformed by the Holy Spirit into the image and likeness of God. The egalitarian implications of Christian free will are striking. Understood as moral choice, Christian free will gives to equality a deep, fundamental, and all-encompassing significance that the merely social understanding of equality surely lacks. God gives the possibility of salvation to all human beings on an equal basis, and it is the freely acting person, the human being as autonomous moral subject, who decides whether or not to answer the divine call. Given that Russian Enlightenment thought tended to bolster old regime institutions, it might seem to belong to the counter-Enlightenment, which historians of Europe's radical Enlightenment see as an obstacle to the progress of egalitarian, democratic, and secular principles. According to these historians, the spread of Enlightenment ideas produced a long and bitter struggle that in some parts of the world continues to this day. The emphasis on the incompatibility of the liberal democratic Enlightenment and the conservative or moderate mainstream Enlightenment is not unfounded. But it overlooks what is arguably the most outstanding quality of Enlightenment culture. The quality, moreover, that made the democratic ideals of the radical Enlightenment not only imaginable, but also eventually attainable. This was and remains the capacity of Enlightenment ideas to generate reform and change without appearing to destroy established beliefs, practices, and customs. It is the capacity to strive for progress, for the improvement of society and the amelioration of the human condition in a non-dogmatic, non-doctrinaire, and non-ideological manner, in a manner that is capable of reconciling tradition and innovation, established beliefs and new knowledge, ideals and realities. The Russian Enlightenment embodied this non-dogmatic cosmopolitan quality. This is precisely the approach that we should take as we try to rethink education in the 21st century. Russia's religious enlighteners were serious, if not gifted thinkers, who reconciled Christian teachings about enlightenment, reason, freedom, and equality with the idea of progress as human flourishing. In the process, they provided a cultural bridge to European modernity that for a time allowed modernity to be understood in indigenous Russian terms. Through the filter of orthodox religious teachings, Enlightenment ideas served to strengthen Russia's established social and political order. The result was a cultural openness uniquely characteristic of the 18th century, an openness that would be lost in the 19th century as romantic nationalism took hold, but that allowed educated Russians to experience the joy of becoming self-consciously enlightened, civilized, and European. To conclude, I would like to suggest that the joy of becoming self-consciously enlightened and civilized, the joy of discovering that one has a mind that deserves to be developed, is the primary goal of education. It is a goal, moreover, that flows naturally from traditional Socratic methods of teaching. In a university setting, intellectual development results from the give and take of enlightened conversation with a teacher whose mind is more mature or better informed than that of the student. In my own life, I benefited personally and professionally from strong relationships with wise mentors and teachers, people who knew more than I did about life and history. I have also been teaching for close to 30 years, and I have raised 3 children of my own. The core lesson I have learned is that at all levels of intelligence and schooling, the path to creativity begins with intellectual engagement, with the experience of living the life of the mind. The life of the mind can be lived in any occupation or social condition. But before a person can do anything innovative or creative, he must learn that his mind is worth developing. The enduring message of the Enlightenment, in all its various forms, is that every human being has intellectual and moral potentialities that he or she can choose to develop. This is an old message, yet it remains critical to the reform of education. As in the past, education needs to be not just about getting a job or acquiring technical skills, but also about nurturing the internal intellectual resources that bring happiness in times of hardship and preserve dignity in times of oppression. In the words of Immanuel Kant, enlightenment is man's release from his self-incurred tutelage. Have the courage to use your reason. The information technology being discussed today offers exciting opportunities for enlightened, knowledge-based communication across the globe. But in utilizing this technology, we cannot lose sight of the importance of face-to-face human contact in the learning process. Imagine educating a child without the physical presence of other human beings. Imagine also trying to master a foreign language without living in a society where that language is spoken on the streets. Human beings cannot progress, Enlightenment philosophers taught, without developing their moral sense, the sense of empathy that is stimulated by direct human interaction. Thank you.
Excellence in the classroom setting, assessment of teaching effectiveness, mentoring students and engaging them in the processes of doing science, development and implementation of innovative curriculum, presentation and publication of novel curriculum, and teaching approaches and significant external grant support to improve quality of teaching. All of which is quite impressive, but I think the most impressive thing is when I read what people wrote about her teaching. I was reading about her biology class and thinking, man, I want to take this class. What do you have to do to get into it? So what I thought I would do...
All the seats are full.
I'm sorry?
All the seats are full.
Yeah. Where's the provost? Let's, But what I would like to do is read you an excerpt from something that was written about her teaching, and this gives you a feeling of what this class must be like. When you observe Dr. Hartney teaching a class of 100+ students, you are impressed by the exquisite clarity of explanation of complex biological processes which are tailored to student groups who may be non-majors or biology majors. However, you quickly realize that the focus is not the teacher, but the students. The students are fully engaged. The excitement in the room is electric. Dr. Hartney is a facilitator of students' interactions. You may see students lined up along the aisles to show how electron transport system works. You may observe students using their hands and fingers to teach themselves the processes of cell division. The visuals are comprehensive and lucid. She infuses inquiry, discovery, and interconnectedness. She pauses and asks students to respond to a question that requires them to apply what they have learned. Individual students write answers on index cards, then share with a partner or in small groups. Responses to these questions then allow Dr. Hartney to determine students' understanding and to generate further discussion. Thorough and meticulous planning by Dr. Hartney has led to a dynamic and highly interactive classroom experience, which is reflected in her superb student evaluations. Exam day is unique. It starts with an exam carefully designed to test students' knowledge and ability to apply and analyze topics. Exam study guides have helped students focus their study time and explore synthesis questions. After students tune in their exams, they have the opportunity to take the test again, this time as a group, and add points to their individual exams. Students are encouraged to form study groups and must meet at least twice before the exam to qualify for the exam retake. During the group retake, there's a lot of excitement and noise. in the rooms as students teach and learn from each other. When they hand in the group test, students ask Dr. Hartney lots of questions, and she patiently guides them to the answers. They leave with enhanced enthusiasm for the subject, eager to learn more. Dr. Hartney has mentored many research students, supporting the development of their analytical abilities, encouraging and helping them present at scientific conferences. Tina also shares her teaching talents with individual teaching associates, helping them realize their potential as effective instructors. Dr. Hartney is recognized nationally as a leader in inquiry-based teaching methodologies and innovative curriculum development. She's been invited to give numerous presentations at national, regional, CSU, and campus conferences and workshops. She's published laboratory manuals for non-major biologies and for majors in biology laboratories, and is preparing publications in introductory biology curriculum, group teaching, and science learning portfolios. Dr. Hartney led the development and implementation of a $1.3 million Howard Hughes Medical Institute undergraduate science education program and integrated curriculum development, student research, faculty development, and outreach to pre-service and in-service teachers into a comprehensive program to build inquiry and interdisciplinary approaches to science experiences. The Provost Award for Excellence in Teaching requires that the recipient have developed teaching techniques that energize and challenge our students and foster their engagement, enthusiasm, and achievement. I don't think that there's any question that Tina Hartney has done this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You did my whole talk. Okay, so guess what I'm going to talk about? If you can't, when you're asleep. So I am very honored to be standing here in front of you, and I have to tell you, I'm incredibly nervous. This always happens to me when I'm speaking to peers that in this room sit many, many great teachers. And I think of myself only as the first to be recognized. There are many others to be recognized in the process. But I am going to talk about teamwork, and I'm going to talk about using many minds to enhance teaching and learning. And I don't ever pass up an opportunity to teach, so be prepared. You know, in this process of becoming a teacher, I don't think any of us are really born to that. But in the process of becoming a teacher, there have been occasions where I feel we've been missing opportunities to teach and learn. And when we think about teaching and learning, it is a social process. It's not something that happens in isolation. It is give and take. As Elise said, there's a lot of give and take. There's creating and there's sharing. And that doesn't happen alone. So in these situations that I've recognized in my own teaching experience, there are what I feel are missed opportunities to infuse that with additional teaching and learning. So I'm going to describe that to you, and my hope is that you'll find some idea in there that really appeals to you, and you'll go for it. So we're both teaching, we're both learning. If you have any questions, ask me, because I have a lot to learn as well. We'll do this as a collaborative effort. First missed opportunity for teaching and learning is exam day. I hate exam day. I used to hate exam day. I don't not hate it anymore, but it used to be a very difficult day. This is what exam day looks like. Students are sitting around and they are going to tell me everything that they've learned or what they're capable of doing, but they're doing it by themselves. And this is what the first 45 minutes of my exam day looks like. But the last half an hour of that same day looks a little bit different. It turns from being this very somber, serious, quiet. People are laughing, they're having a good time, they are teaching each other. And it gives students an opportunity to use that day that they dread as another opportunity to teach and learn. So how you take that and turn it into something that's really useful is this idea behind informal study groups and group exams. And the reality is that this is essentially the carrot, it's the tease. The real goal is to get this to happen. So this is the payoff, this is the bonus, but this is really what I wanted to happen, is for students to essentially get together, to spend time teaching one another, with the payoff being we get to demonstrate that as a group. Okay, so just some background, although I realized that a lot of this was already kind of, it was a trailer into my introduction. But the group exam is something that students earn. So it isn't that it's just something that happens at the end of an exam period. They have to earn the right to participate in that group exam. And so they have to participate in these informal groups that meet outside of class prior to an examination period. And their participation in this is entirely voluntary. This is kind of an extra that's offered to them in the class. Certainly I promote it. Certainly I promote it because I think it has great benefit in building community, in sharing ideas, creating new ideas. So they get together and it doesn't involve me. This is a very good thing. It doesn't involve me. Involvement takes additional time. I don't, distribute them certain ways. They just find each other. And this fact that they're self-governing, I don't even tell them what to do. I give them suggestions. Maybe you might want to work on your study questions. Maybe fake exam questions. Anticipate what I'm going to ask. You can do whatever you want, but you have to meet for a certain length of time on a certain number of occasions before you ever get to this exam. Now, the fact that the groups are dynamic is important. Groups can be formed, reconstituted, dissolved in between each exam period. So if you're in a group that it just isn't working for you, or you want to recruit that really bright guy into your group, and the really bright guy is really open to that, or you want to jettison the one that never shows up or shows late, you can do that. And it's amazing to me that no group has ever come and said, we need your help. Johnny's not participating or we can't get hold of it. It's just, you know what, live through it and reconstitute your group. So to qualify to take this group exam, essentially, the groups must have at least 3 members. Partners doesn't work very well. That's too easy. And they will tend to pick the friends or friends that they already know. And most of the classes that I teach are between 100 persons and 115. That's a big class. They're almost all populated by first-time freshmen. And it's really important that they make some connections on campus and make them early. This kind of goes back to what Barbara was talking about, is this real need to build community, and this does it within my class. And it happens all on its own. Very little facilitating. So they have to have at least 3 members, and then you can have a real good conversation. You have more than 7, it just becomes unwieldy and logistically difficult to talk in a group. They have to meet for at least 1 hour on 2 separate occasions before an exam takes place. Now, I always tell them this is not the same as 2 hours one time. They always want to slide that in there, and I'm like, no, 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 no. This is all about frequency. This is about getting together and talking frequently as you're developing and your learning is expanding. So they meet, and then they complete a group roster form. I need some evidence that they met. They fill out this form, and it tells me when they met, and it tells me where they met, tells me who was there, and they also have to sign off on it. And they describe a little bit about what they did. It's been very interesting to me in the last year. Where we met would be library. It might be quad. It could be, we met in the dorms. In the last year, a fair number of these we Skyped. Okay, fine by me. As long as you can see each other, as long as you can examine expressions, that they can communicate, have some personal contact, at least visually, is okay by me. So they complete this group roster form each time they meet. Now, the group roster form now becomes, they have to have at least 2 of these, it becomes their ticket. And it very much is a ticket in my class. It's sort of like you hand these in, and I will give you a group exam. The group exam is identical to the exam that they just took. The group exam, I only give them 1. It doesn't matter if they're 3 or they're 7. They only get 1 exam. That forces them to talk to each other, forces somebody to read aloud those questions. They only fill out 1 answer form, forces collaboration during that period of time. So don't make it easy for them, and they're all like, I don't know if you've seen Building 3 auditorium. It's not particularly amenable to group work. It's these fixed seats on the risers. They're hanging over each other. They're sitting on the floor. It doesn't matter. They are enjoying what they're doing, and they are definitely teaching one another beforehand and learning beforehand as well. We could advance, couldn't we? There we go. Okay. All right. So that's what I would think. I was like, where's the payoff? Okay, the payoff here to the group exam. And again, the group exam is the culmination. It's the carrot. It's the winning piece of this. But to get there, they have to do these informal groups. So the payoff here for me, and I think for them, is that the exam period becomes energized. It's raucous. It's loud. These people are laughing. They're slapping their head, and usually there's some offensive terminology that comes out if they haven't done well, but they're talking together about these questions. So because they've taken it as an individual, I know what it was that they might have known before that, and now I'm finding out what do multiple minds know about these things. Students can earn some extra points here, but it depends upon how they score. And I don't worry about, are they really meeting? Are they making this up? Those groups don't score very high. And in order to earn this, you get 5 points for 90% or above, 4 for 80%, and so on. And in fact, I have lowered the number of points I will give. In the past 2 terms, I only give 4 points. It doesn't matter. A student will do anything for 1 point. It is amazing to me. So I'm going to see how low I can go. before they say, oh, this just isn't worth it. But so far, I'm at 4. Pretty good. So if the group gets an A, each individual gets 4 points added to their individual score. And in the big scheme of points, this is insignificant, practically. So the real advantage, I think, to them is that they are immediately reviewing the questions that they just took. That doesn't happen very often, and for those of us that teach these huge classes very frequently, we often don't give the exams back. And the number of students that will actually take time to come to your office to look at those exam questions is very low. So whatever they answered, whatever they thought at that point in time is now fixed in their mind. They really, here they get to see the question immediately. Their group talks about the question. They know right there whether they got it correct or they missed it. And they have a chance to dispel some of those misconceptions that led them to the wrong answer. So I'd have the sincere pleasure of having them for an hour and 15 minutes per period so I can do this on that level. But I've had colleagues now, this is my big sell. Okay, so here it is. This is my take this home and try this. Is they're like, well, I give them longer on the test. You can do a portion of the test as a group exam. You don't have to redo the whole exam. Do one question where they simply can gain something by redoing that question using lots of different minds. The other great part here is that prior to me using this, students would hand in their exam and it'd be, and they'd give me this, you are so mean, you are so unfair, this is just, it's all your fault. What they find out in their groups is that it wasn't my fault because somebody in that group could help work them through it and they get the right answer. The responsibility for not having learned that or being able to perform that falls in the right place, and that's with them. And that was one of the primary things that kept me going was it isn't about me anymore, it's about them. And that self-realization that there are others that could have succeeded on that, but they didn't, is a huge motivator. They just need that demonstration. Test days are certainly less anxiety-ridden from my perspective, certainly, and I think to students as well, they have a good time. I say somewhat fun, because exams and just in general are not really fun things, and it is another opportunity for them to learn. And that is an important goal. We only have 10 weeks. If you take 2 or 3 of those sessions for an exam, you've missed 3 opportunities. In this case, they are teaching and learning each other, which is great. Those are extensions of me. And for a class that size, I could use a few clones. Could certainly use a few clones. All right, so do I know whether their performance as an individual is enhanced? I'm still working on those statistics. That's very hard to measure. They take that individual exam. They have met as a group prior to that. Did that meeting actually enhance how they do as an individual? It would be hard for me to say, I'm sorry, but this half of the class can't participate in group study. It's like doing a drug test and there's positive results, but maintaining the experiment. So I'm working on that kind of using some different statistical approaches. But the things I do know is that participation rates are really high on this activity. And so about up to 83%. Now that data was calculated on the basis of 13 sections of about 100 students each. So that's a fair number. So they are capable of creating groups. Now, you might ask the question, so who's not participating? And frequently, those who are not participating are those that feel so comfortable with the material and know that they will achieve the grade that they're looking for without this extra bonus. And that they are often the achievers who always were called upon to do all the work anyway in a group. So you always are going to have that group. And then you have the really lowest group member, the class member who just doesn't even realize what's going on in class and has a very difficult time. But those are the students who also come to me and say, oh, what can I do to improve my grade? Join a group. Okay? So they will begin doing that. On average, 74% of the students, and these are on end-of-term assessments, agreed that this was indeed an effective way to learn and kind of a fun way to learn. It's social. And our students are social beings. And they enjoy that opportunity and its payoff. Interestingly enough, I teach the first of 3 courses in a series. And I had the opportunity when we were working on our grant to assess those students at the end of each of those 3 courses. The 2 courses that come after mine do not have a formalized group study, group reward system. But as I looked at those students as they moved through, 73% of those that had participated in a study group in my class were still participating with no reward. So this little bit of reward goes a really long way, and the effects are somewhat long-lasting. For me, and we always got to be concerned about that, we're all time managers. For me, there's a little extra bookkeeping, keeping track, but that's it. That's it. That's not my only involvement. So if there's one thing that you might think about changing or think about adding to your repertoire of wonderful teaching strategies, this might be one of them. It's very straightforward. If you want to see a group roster, or you want to, what do you put in your syllabus about this, and how do you handle the logistics, just email me, KB Hartney, and I'll send you all that stuff. Okay, now, second missed opportunity. I am a biologist, and most all of the sciences run labs, but there are applications here for any of the disciplines in which something is measured. Okay, may do surveys, may do gather data from other places. You may modify data in some way, but anywhere there's a measurement, this might be helpful for you, or at least conceptually might be interesting to you. But I have a really hard time with laboratories, and as we all know, resources are less than they used to be, and so you want your resources to go as far as possible. So if we think about this little scenario, and this is the best I can do in terms of animation, which is pretty poor, you have a student who talks about the time that they spent doing this investigation, and we have really tried to change our laboratories from being just repetitive processes to verify what's already known. We really tried to get away from that to more inquiry-based, more what we call in our field authentic experiences, where they have kind of an open-ended investigation, and the question is much bigger than them or that quarter. So she's really got some really cool results, and he seems pretty happy about it, you know, and he admires the work that she's put in, and he's thinking, I've got just the best lab partner ever. Okay, so then I threw them away. You what? Why didn't you share them with me? This is what we have consistently done since the time I was in school, and I'm not going to reveal when I was in college, but let's just say there's been a long interval between then and now, and the reality is that in every lab I was in, we would do an investigation. In that case, they were more laboratory exercises. Now they're more like investigations. You'd write it up, teacher would grade them, and they went in the trash. That was the end of it. We didn't keep that. Now, for scientists sitting in the room, and that it's any kind of scientist or anybody who takes measurements, realizes that scientists don't do that. Even if they're crap, even if the results are crap, they record it. And they'll write in the margin, this seems like crap. But they don't throw it away. Because what we have discovered over time is sometimes it's the crap that is the golden nugget. Next time you do it, this seems like crap too. Next time you do it, more crap. And then you go, what does the relationship between all the crap? Oh, crap. It's a pattern. It's a pattern. And that becomes our next question. Why are we getting that pattern? What's different from what we did before? But in our laboratories, what we model is spend a bunch of time, get a bunch of numbers, write up a report, and throw it away. That's not good modeling for what they should be doing. So another missed opportunity. And we had the good fortune of thinking about whether or not is there a way that we could preserve that data and share that data rather than throwing it away. And we also had the good fortune of a grant from the Howard Hughes Medical Institute that would help us to do what we needed to do to preserve and share that data. And the result was something we call the Science Learning Portfolio. The Science Learning Portfolio is an online, web-accessible repository for student-generated data. So we keep it, and it becomes available to other students, either at the introductory level or beyond it. And so we're not throwing away those resources. The time, the money, the effort is that we store it. Now in this case, that data can be used for teaching and learning, again in a social context, but now instead of face-to-face and you know the other individual, it's somewhat anonymous. Someone else generated that data that you're going to use. And that's a good model for the way at least science is working, because there is a gold mine in databases. And so we've got our own on-campus gold mine. The Science Learning Portfolio, essentially as a database, was the main thing that starts this or builds that database are those introductory students and the investigations that they're doing. So they do a series of different activities, and they're entering their data into that database. Now the advantage at that level, and we can talk about that, using that data for support of horizontal learning, in that each term we run 8 laboratories. Basically, they are all participating in a similar activity. They're all contributing to the database. And now instead of having 2 data points for one of the activities, we have 16 data points. So we maximize the amount of data that's there, which most of you realize from a statistical viewpoint becomes more useful. The other thing is that they're contributing, in some cases, projects that last for a long time, that you don't get results in 3 hours. But you're going to see our results over quarters, over years. So that data is available. The other aspect of the learning portfolio, so these students at the introductory level who are not very sophisticated are generating lots of numbers. It's being stored. And the question became, can we use that data later? Sure, why not? We are not throwing it away, nor do we consider it crap. Yes, let's make that data available in upper division courses, supporting courses. As the student moves through their academic program and they become more sophisticated. You know, as a freshman, chi-square is this rather odd thing. But as a junior, chi-square, oh, I get that. I understand why I would do that. You know, one-way analysis of variance, I could do that now that I have biometrics. So it becomes useful as sheer data to other classes, including biology, because that's my department, but also all of the supporting areas as well. Okay, so at that lower level, essentially, we're allowing for data sharing among multiple lab sections within quarters and across quarters, because it's always preserved. It helps us to create situations in which they have more numbers to work with, more quantitative data. And the real interesting aspect to me is that for many of these long-term projects we do, is that patterns and trends begin to develop over the long term, and it certainly is a better model for how science is done. The data archives, the science learning portfolio and the data archive itself were developed in collaboration with INIT, and I know Curtis is here. Curtis played a very important role in taking my ideas and getting his team to create the database that would work for us. And so in that sense, it was a very good experience because that part involved collaboration as well. But right now, and I know you can't read all of these, but right now there are 8 data sets in here dealing with plant growth, enzymes, metabolism, diffusion, fermentation, cardiovascular heart performance measures, and decomposition. You might go, well, there's the crap lab. But it isn't. Actually, to me, it's like one of the better labs ever. If you've ever watched a leaf decompose, well, you're probably dead by now. Because it takes a long time for things to decompose. You can't do that in a 3-hour lab. But you can follow that leaf over years. So it is a mechanism for us to capture some interesting data. So the question is, that's fine. All of these lower division students are utilizing the data that they created to support what they are doing. But can we use these for other purposes more broadly? And in fact, I was delighted to say, yes, we can. And I was equally delighted that many faculty in the College of Science and also in class joined me in an effort to say, how could we use these data and how best could we use them in your courses? And so this, again, the idea is it's just to impress you with how many rows and columns there are. But 8 faculty stepped forward and said, sure, I'll help you. And what we essentially, or what I was asking them to do, was to build what we call concept and skill modules. Yet another thing that would be online that instructors could assign as a homework. And the module would lead the student through that activity and would cause students to answer a question, now in the context of this upper division class, but tap into the science learning portfolio for the data it contains. That data has so much value beyond what we did at the freshman level. And since we have it, let's use it. And of all of the scientists here, it was the mathematicians who were so excited. It was like real data. And it's not clean. The data is not clean. It's, there's variation. These are freshman students. But the mathematicians love that. We like dirty data sets. And I said, okay, because it creates conversation, discussion, how you deal with variation. And variation is a part of our world. And so learning to deal with that mathematically. We had faculty who were using the various data. You can see there's different titles. The red part that's the database that they're entering, or the category of data they're using. So we have biologists using them for workshops, for classes, and mathematicians, computer scientists. He was really excited. Data. So he used that. He was using that to support his numerical methods class. And that's basically the title of the work. And then there's 2 activities that he developed. And a mathematician, and Joe was a mathematician here. And then Dr. Wu was using, well, you know what? You went out, Dr. Bovich has in his class looking at the effects of climate change on plants. And so he goes and he has students measure the same plants. The plants are uniquely numbered. The plants have all been GPSed, which is Global Positioning System. So it's just like your dog. You can put the little tag on your dog now and know where he's peeing. You can call him up and say, where's my dog? Oh, he's over in the roses. Okay. Well, the GPS is just a locational device. But using that location, you can attach all kinds of data to that position in space. And so what Lynn goes, oh, you mean you GPSed all those plants? Cool. I'll use your data set to teach my students essentially about mapping. So there was I think of the whole project, this is the best part for me, because other faculty were really excited about the availability of data that previously went in the trash. So it's an excellent way, I think, of promoting teaching and learning. I know you wouldn't be able to see these. They're really here just for color. But in brief, these concept and skill modules are fairly consistent with one another. That was one of our goals. They consist of just a series of PowerPoint slides that help students move through the activity. All of them follow a standardized kind of color scheme so that if students were to take another course that also used these, they would know what are to-do things and what are informational. They present the students with one or more problems. So these are really problem-based. These are separate, related to the course, but the goal is to develop more problem-solving skills, and in doing that, develop more quantitative skills. So they're number-based. They also rely on the student-generated data. We said that that's a criteria. We want you to tap into that science learning portfolio, but now they're looking at it in a completely different context. It's not the same context, they're not repeating that. It's going to provide them with practice to use Excel spreadsheets, which is one of our university goals, is that students are very savvy with working with numbers and moving them around in spreadsheets. And it should, like all of the things we do, should include a way of assessing what the students learned as a result of having worked through this. So there is always some questions that will test their ability in that new context. All right, so here we have this student-generated data and using it in multiple contexts. We created those modules in 2009. Some of them have been tested, so that's why I say is expected to. But the number one thing on that list is just provide more bang for the buck. Why not? We don't need to throw things away. They should result in, and I've seen this already, when we tell our students of the freshman year and say, you know what, you may see this data again in a new context when you take mammalian physiology. And they go, what? Suddenly, it seems more important what they're doing. Suddenly, it has value to them. They might see it again. And they go, well, what if I don't take that class? Well, others will see it. It has value to others. Then it becomes, they feel as if they're making a contribution, and they spend a little bit more time, not all of them, but they spend more time investing. Our goal here is really to reach higher levels of quantitative and reasoning skills, broaden and deepen the experiences they have in terms of inquiry-based experiences. And I think this one is really, really important, is that they realize the relationship between different disciplines and skill sets. That what they learn in Bio 121 at the end of the term is not the end of learning. That it goes on from there, and that they can use those same skills in a variety of courses. I'm sure we're all in situations where our majors come and they demand to know, why do they have to take this course? Why do I have to take math? Why do I have to take physics? These modules kind of help to demonstrate why. Because you can't do biology without math. You can't, so let's put some biology and math. You can't do physics or biology without physics. So let's do a little physics. And they see their own data becoming important within that context of a course that they demanded to know, why do I have to take that? So, every day is a day that we can teach, and we certainly learn something every day. It is done in a social context. I really wanted to share something that I thought, oh, well, just conceptually might be really appealing to you. I was thinking, well, maybe I should talk about how to be a successful teacher. I don't know. You got to be passionate about what you do. You have to be really persistent about what you do. You have to be perceptive about what you do. If there's a distance between you and what you can see on your students' faces or what they write about, then you're not engaged with them. You have to be involved with them. And you have to be creative and responsive to the challenges that you perceive that you're teaching, and the ability for you to learn from your students is falling short. It can't be ignored. Address it. We're all creative in this room. We can do that, but we only do it as a member of a team. So that's what I'll leave you with, that thought. That's the end. No more YouTube. Thank you.
Don't you just love working at a university? How great is this? What a day, huh? Would we right now, let's give all three of those incredibly excellent people a hand. Okay, you can see over to the side here, the doors are being opened. We're going to have a lovely lunch. In just a moment, I'll ask you to stand up, go over there. Do not trip over the center cords. I was supposed to remind you. There will be 2 long tables. There's the same food on each side, so that's 4 lines. So just go ahead and get food, bring it back here. We'll have about 45 minutes, and there's more to come. Thank you.